Hey everyone, I am going to run you through a very basic color theory exercise. Most of us as artists, we're very visual learners, so I think it's very important to do this exercise if you're an artist yourself or if you're an artist and you're educating students. I think it's a very important exercise to do with students as well. So follow along with me while I show you this basic exercise. All right, so we're gonna do just a basic color theory exercise so you can understand how mixing different pigments makes different colors. So I just have a basic yellow, red, and blue, which are our primary colors that we learned about in elementary school. And I've put them onto my plate here. I have a little cup of water to rinse my brush in between, and I have a little paintbrush here. So what we're gonna do first is make our tertiary colors, which is mixing two primary colors together. First, we're going to make orange, which is mixing yellow and red. So I encourage you to buy paint and get out some colors and take yourself back to art class. So there we have a nice little orange. I'm gonna rinse my brush, and now I'm going to make green. So we're gonna take yellow, we're gonna take some blue, and we're gonna mix it up. You might have to add more yellow or more blue, depending on how potent these pigments are. I'm gonna add a little more yellow. And just keep mixing until you kind of get the green that you like. I find when it comes to eyebrows, a lot of people will come in with kind of like a weird army green color if the pigment has faded funny over time. Depending on the quality of pigments, things like that. All right, so that's getting green enough for me. I'm gonna rinse my brush here. So now that I rinsed my brush, we're gonna make purple. So we're gonna do that by mixing red and blue. So now that we've mixed up our colors, we're gonna go back to our color wheel and we're gonna see what counteracts each color. So typically, if somebody comes in with orange brows, blue will counteract orange if you look at your color wheel. So if we take a little bit of blue here and mix it in, I know that's a very pigmented blue, so I'm not gonna do much at first. And then we mix, mix, mix. You can see this lovely orange turning brown. So if someone comes in with like bluish gray brows, you wanna use an orange-based pigment or red-based pigment depending on the saturation. It's very rare that you'll have orangey brows, but you can always counteract that with a cooler pigment. Then we're gonna see how we can take our green eyebrow back to a brown. And if you look on your color wheel again, green and red are opposite. So we're gonna take a little bit of red here and we're going to mix it in. And we can turn it to a nice brown again. And then depending on how warm you want the brown, we're gonna just add more red. Last but not least, we have purple. So if you have someone coming in with a purple toned eyebrow, you would color correct with a yellow based pigment. And as you mix the yellow in, you can again see it going to a nice shade of brown. And depending on how warm you want it, you're going to keep adding yellow. And this is still looking a little greenish because we have a lot of that blue. We know this is very pigmented, so I'm going to add a tiny bit of red in here to turn it back to brown. So this is why it's very important to understand your client's undertone and what type of pigment you're using, because you're really gonna have to know that when choosing what color to use and what the base tone of that pigment is. So I just wanted to show you a little video to highlight the importance of knowing your CI codes and essentially the ingredients of each color in your pigments. As you can see here, I have yellow paint, but it's two different yellows. So they would have two different ingredients, or two different sets of ingredients to make those yellows, three different reds, but they all look slightly different, and two different blues. So Every pigment is going to have that CI code or several CI codes for the different ingredients that make up that color. So for instance, you'll see here if we mix this yellow with this blue, we're still going to get green. It's very pretty minty green. Versus if we mix this yellow with this blue, that's our very pigmented blue, so I'm gonna have to add more yellow. Just add a dab. You're gonna get a different kind of turquoisey color here. And then same thing with these reds. If you mix a red with different yellows, you're gonna have different outcomes. This is like a creamsicle orange versus the same red with a different yellow, a brighter true orange. So both of these pigments here have the same red, but two different yellows, and you have two different colors. Now, for time's sake, I'm not gonna go through all of them. I would like all of my students to try this at home, but just to highlight color correcting, for orange, we like to correct with a blue-based pigment. So I'm just gonna use the same blue here in both, just a tiny little bit. So the same blue, but two different oranges. You're gonna have, again, two different shades of brown. So this is why knowing the ingredients in your pigments is going to directly affect your healed outcome. So it's very important that when you get pigments in, especially if they're new pigments you haven't worked with, I always like to write down the CI number, and a quick Google search will tell you what type of red, what type of yellow, what type of blue, all that kind of stuff. And as well as if they're inorganic or organic pigments. So all of that stuff will all go into play when you are choosing the color for your clients, both initially or if you're doing color corrective work. So a really easy exercise, super fun, break out your paints and go play.